Welcome to the Reddit Chronicles. Today we will be reading from Relationship Advice. Our first post is by Throwaway. My son 45M is dating a much younger girl, 19M, I 69F, have two sons. The younger one, 37, is married to his high school girlfriend and they have two daughters. The eldest, Sam, 45, moved to New York City to focus on his career, and now he's at the point when he can relax a little. All mothers love their sons, but he is objectively good-looking, tall, smart, successful, and kind. He's had a couple of his age long-term girlfriends. I've always been sad that he hasn't found a life partner yet, but understood he was doing it at his pace, until I met his girlfriend a few days ago. Over Thanksgiving, both sons flew home to us. My son brought home his girlfriend that he's been dating for almost a year. I'd heard about her from him and he sounded happy, but he's not the type to share that much with me or his father. When he said he'd like to bring her for Thanksgiving, we were very excited to finally meet the girl he's serious about. When she walked in, we were all shocked. She looked so young, so beautiful and mature, but definitely young. I pulled him aside and asked how old she was. He looked embarrassed and said she was turning 20 soon. I never expected him to go for someone so young. Maybe someone 30 or 35, as I know he wants children soon, but not someone in their first year of college. We went back to dinner. I didn't want to make the poor girl feel bad. My husband and younger son staring was rude enough, so I was very welcoming to her. She's very intelligent, nice, confident, and so on, but in the manner of a precocious teen. Her family are wealthy, so she's not financially dependent. Dinner was awkward but fine. At the end of the evening, everyone went to bed, but it made me feel nauseous to know what was happening in my own house. The next day they had to leave early so she could see her family. They left together but split when he dropped her at the airport. My son went to visit his childhood friends in our hometown, but he's coming back tomorrow. Is this relationship possibly healthy? Can I voice my concerns, or is it none of my business? Has anyone dealt with something similar in their family? Our next post is by Funky Carpenter. My 32F, fiancé, 35M, agreed to taking my last name. His best friend, 33F, is calling me abusive for it. Now we're fighting over her being invited to the wedding. A bit of background. My fiancé's last name is his bio father's last name. Bio dad wasn't in the picture most of his life, and though he's a nice enough person who never hurt my fiancé, his name isn't something my fiancé particularly cares about. My fiancé considered changing his last name to his mother's maiden name, but simply never got around to it. My last name, on the other hand, is particularly important to me. It's not super unique or anything, but it's a name I have never wanted to give up and have ended relationships over when a guy said he would never allow me to keep my name. When we got engaged, we had discussions regarding our last names. After quite a few talks and weighing the pros and cons, we ultimately agreed that he would take my last name as he likes it. I would get to keep my surname, and he could drop his bio father's name. This was a decision we both were perfectly happy with, and the discussions were never argumentative or even one person pushing for a specific resolution. It's been decided for well over a year. The issue we have found ourselves in is his best friend is trying to interfere and get a say in our decision. She doesn't like me at all, and while we are civil around each other, she tends to badmouth me to others, and it's already strained her friendship with my fiancé. That said, they still talk randomly, and the topic of last names came up. She asked how the future Mrs. his name was handling wedding planning, and my fiancé corrected her and stated he was taking my name. After the first few accusations of me manipulating and abusing my fiancé, he let me read the messages because he felt I needed to know what was said because he was concerned she was going to try telling others I was abusing my fiancé. The last thing she sent before my fiancé ripped into her was, "If you take her name, you're letting her take over your entire life and removing your manhood." I have never been one to tell my so who they can and can't have in their lives. But this woman will not drop the subject of last names and is claiming that as his best friend, she gets a say in his last name. My fiancé has told her she gets zero input in our relationship, but he's also not willing to drop her as a friend despite all of this. I told him I understand, but because of her continued behavior, I don't want her at our wedding when she feels this comfortable demanding a say in something she's not involved in. He doesn't like this because he feels like she wouldn't ruin our wedding just to be vindictive. Now we are arguing about her being invited or not, and the more he tries defending her, the more I feel I need to put my foot down. Should I just let her be invited and have my friends on alert in case she attempts something? Should I stand my ground and demand she not be invited? I hate that this is a battle we have to have, but I feel like she is stirring the pot just to try and make me the bad guy. My fiancé and I have reached the agreement that she at the very least will not under any circumstances be part of the wedding party, but I don't trust her to not cause trouble on our wedding day. Update. My fiancé and I have been reading the comments together, and he's seeing my side a little clearer. We settled on a compromise. He's going to inform her that she has to apologize to me for her behavior and immediately stop talking about me to others, or he will not be continuing their friendship. We have decided that she is not welcome at the wedding, ceremony, or reception, and my fiancé plans to be blunt as to why. We agreed to leave this up to her. She can either be respectful of me and the relationship, or she can lose her best friend. He's been very clear that the only reason he hasn't completely cut her off has been a fear that she would try saying I made him to others and amping up the attacks, but we have a plan in place to get ahead of it. Our next post is by Throwaway. My 23M parents 46M, 44F had a DNA test on my eldest daughter. My wife Jane, 22F, and I have 2 children. Our eldest, Melissa, 4. Her conception was under horrible circumstances. We decided to keep her regardless and didn't test. Obviously, I didn't explain everything to my parents, and Melissa's my daughter no matter what. Unfortunately, as she's gotten older, she doesn't take after my side, and my parents, especially my father, did not like this. She looks like Jane's side, so I've always told him that. Even if she was mine biologically, she could look the same, even if less likely. But he thinks it's unnatural for her not to look like me at all, even if it's possible anyway. He's never said it to our kids, and I thought he had dropped it. But last month he decided to do a DNA test. I assume they need parent consent, so he must have done something sketchy for it. Unfortunately, Melissa didn't match him. I was furious because I'd told him to drop all this talk before. I've told him that if she somehow wasn't mine by blood, I know about her birth and she was still my daughter either way. But he was trying to prove that Jane was a whore and I was being manipulated. I tried to end all this, but in the end Jane admitted everything. To be clear, I did not want or encourage her to do this. At this point I was saying we should cut them off if they keep this up. She naively thought it would help. Obviously my parents don't believe it and are butting to help me. But they're ignoring everything I'm saying at every step. At this point I'm starting to think I want to cut contact. But Jane feels guilty for causing all this even though it's not her fault. They're the only grandparents our kids will have, but I feels it's not worth it to put up with this. Is it just an overreaction? What would be a better approach if so? How can I make them understand I'm not being manipulated? Our next post is by Throwaway. My 25F Thanksgiving with my husband, 25M, was the worst. I have dated him for 4 years, and have been married to him for an additional 4 years. We have our ups and downs, but generally, he is very sweet to me. We have a 5-year-old daughter and a 3-year-old son, and they are adorable too. This Thanksgiving, though, turned out to be a disaster. I wanted to go over to my family's house for Thanksgiving, but after an argument between my husband and my parents, they don't want him around and he would prefer I not go. It turned out to be a moot point when my parents had to cancel their plans due to them catching COVID. So I decided to go with him to his parents' house. His family doesn't particularly like me, but they love when I help them out. And my husband had me help them with the cooking, the cleaning, setting up the tables, and supervising the kids while the rest eat. I asked my husband to have someone else watch them, but he said that my help was important. I mean, fine, but I don't feel I'm appreciated. Finally, we went home and he took leftovers. Naive me thought he would give them to me, but when we got home, he started to eat them. I confronted my husband and said that I didn't get a chance to eat and that I was never thanked. This led to an argument where he said I didn't need to be a pig and that my sacrifice was important. This led me to shout, and my husband got fed up and started throwing food at me and told me I could eat them like a pig. I was hurt and he bolted out the door. As of today, he still hasn't returned. How do I get him to stop with his attitude? Thank you for listening to the Reddit Chronicles. Follow for more content.